So from the last video, we started putting the GUI elements onto the screen, and now we got to build in some more functionality to it. We've got points being added, and if our player gets hit though right now, we don't actually lose any lives. So we are in this invincible mode, and it's not that challenging because you don't have to worry about getting hit. So we want to make it more challenging. We want to have lives, and we want to be able to subtract a life from player when it gets hit. So generally we could go to say, let's say our script player, and we could go into the script player and we can look in. We say, well, we have an update function, but where are we handling that trigger event when the asteroid actually comes down and hits the player? We're not handling it in here. We could have handled it in here, but we're not. If we go to our script asteroid, we can see that we actually are handling it right in here. So we have our onTrigger event here where it's checking for if it's the player, then one, we're going to subtract a life from the player script. We're getting the component from the player script on the collision event, and we're subtracting one life from the player script. So it does get subtracted in the inspector. And then we have our explosion. We reset our enemy position. Now if we want to be able to subtract from our Scene Manager so that we can reduce the life right in here, which is where we want our GUI information to be, then we could add our update or our event into our player script. But just for the fun of it, instead of adding it in there, we're going to just leave this one a little more simple. We'll go ahead and just add it into our script asteroid. So we're going to go back into here and we're going to just send out two pieces of information. Now, is this the most efficient or the most proper way of doing something? Yes and no. We are dealing with a very small type of game architecture, so it works fine. It's a great way to explore how we tie into other scripts and how we send information between different scripts. So here, we're going to be getting the information and sending it to what? To our player. And we also want to go in and we're going to say, well, it's going to be a lot like our bullet script. In fact, let's go ahead and go back to that one and take a peek at it. We're basically going to tell the Scene Manager that instead of destroying the enemy, we're going to go in and say that we lost a life. And on the Scene Manager side, we're going to say Scene Manager dot transform get component, and we're going to say what file, the script Scene Manager, and what are we going to get inside of there? We could do add score. Add score would add a point for it. But if we go back over here, we could simply just subtract from lives. We've got lives set up, or we could do like we had before. We could add another function here, and we could actually just subtract from lives. Sometimes that can be a little cleaner if we want to. It also keeps the point value in here. And I think we'll do that. Just get practice at creating additional functions, nice simple functions. So here we're going to say subtract life. So inside of our function, we're going to simply do lives minus equal 1. And I'm just going to copy this out. So this is our function for it. We're subtracting 1 from here. We'll go back over to our asteroid script, and instead of the add score, we're doing subtract life. That's just going to run that function for us. It subtracts 1 life for us. And let's save that one out. Now, the one thing that we haven't added yet is we're getting our Scene Manager, but we actually haven't tied it into a loading option. So let's make sure that we load it. So we'll do our variable Scene Manager, and we'll make this our game object. Save that out, and let's go check on our asteroid prefab. We see that we now got our Scene Manager that we can load. We'll just drag in our prefab Scene Manager. We've got it loaded up. Clear out our console. We'll hit play. And we got hit. We already lost 1 life, and we lost 2 lives. and we lost 3 lives, and a negative life, and more lives. Now, what we've done is we have past information, but now what we want to do is actually do something with that information. We want to be able to tell the player that they died at a certain point, or that the game is over if we've lost all of our lives. So on that, we can go back into our Scene Manager, and this is where we're going to want that information to live. We want it to live in this area. We're going to go ahead and close up our GUI, our additional functions. We want to come into here, and we want to be able to check for if my lives is at a certain point, then do what? And that's going to live right here in our update function. But for right now, that gets us really good for at least subtracting the life, and then we'll start dealing with the functionality on that one in just a little bit. And we'll actually focus in next, though, on our countdown, so that we can actually get our other little element up there counting down the lives. So for our timer, there's a number of different ways we can approach this, and we've done one timer before in another project, and what we want to do with this one is we want to do a timer a little bit different. We want to try to actually optimize this out some, so that we're not running this through our update cycle every single time. So on this one, we're going to look at something that's called invoke repeating. And to start with, let's go ahead and just make some variables that we're going to need. We have our game time, which is set at 60, and this is one that we're going to be using. And inside of our API, let's do invoke repeating. And if we go in here, we can see that we've got two different options, one to cancel the invoke, one to invoke repeating. And the basic function that we have here is a string, a time, and a repeat rate. So this invokes the method in time second. So we can actually call up a method, a function, and then over a certain period of time repeat this function over and over and over. So this would be great for being able to count down something. So we have an example down here. It's basically a projectile be launched every 0.3 seconds, and in here invoke repeating, and they're putting in launch projectile. What launch projectile is the function in here, and it's going to do this starting in 2 seconds and then done every 0.3 seconds, and that's how it's being used. So what we could do is basically that same thing. We're going to use an invoke repeating and then a countdown that subtracts for us from the seconds. And then once we actually end the end of our time, then we can do what it is we want to do at the end of the game time. So let's go back up in here, and let's look at what we need to do to kind of get started. We're going to be working from our function start, so we'll go up here above our function update, and this is just more for ordering. It doesn't have a direct impact on anything where we place these functions. But we'll do our function start, and inside of the body here we can basically just use the invoke repeating. So we'll do invoke and inside of the argument here we want to fill it out, and we want to say that we have a method that we're going to be using, and we've got the time and the repeat rate. So what is the method that we're going to use? We haven't actually set one up yet, so let's jump back down and say, what is this function that we want to use? We'll say this is our function countdown. And inside of our function countdown, what we want to do is just subtract from the seconds, and then if we've actually got it lower than a certain point, then we want to basically cancel the invoking. So we'll say if seconds minus is equal to, let's say, 0, then we're going to cancel our invoking. And what is the function that we're canceling? And so we can kind of take a peek at how that one works as well. We'll just step back over. We say cancel invoke. And that one is looking for what? the function invoke void cancels all invoke calls on this mono behavior, so on that object. So we can go in, we can just simply say cancel invoke, or we can actually fill it in and say what function is it that we want to stop. So we're going to stop the countdown function. There we go. And then right below that one, we'll leave it blank for right now, and then eventually what we're going to do is fill in additional information of what is it that we want it to do once it reaches a certain point. So we've got our countdown here. We can go back up to our start function and the invoke repeating function. We're going to have our countdown. We're going to say when do we want it to actually start. So we'll say 1.0. And how often do we want to repeat this? We'll say every second. That way we're counting down every second. And we'll save that guy out. So double check what we've got. We've got our invoke repeating, our countdown. We're starting it in a second, and we're repeating this function, this method, every second. We're going to be subtracting from our game time, which is starting at 60 seconds, and it's exposed to the user. And then if it's equaling 0, we're going to cancel out the invoking so it stops counting down on the GUI. And then we can also include whatever else information we want at that point. Okay, so we'll save it. Make sure we've got it saved. Go over to Unity, and let's hit play. And there we go. The counter is counting down every second. 55, 54, 53. So the user knows that he only has so much time to score as many points as he can, and not to lose all of his lives before the timer runs out. Alright, we're getting some fun functionality built into there, and good information pumped back out to that user so they can see what's going on for them. Okay, and with that, we're going to go ahead and stop this video here, and in the next one we're going to tie off a lot of these elements and pull them together and get some of those done.